Welcome to Building Your Leader Brand. Today on the show, Bob is speaking with Alex and Pete.
We're interrupted, dear listener, by Bob's AI vacuum cleaner for a second time.
I'm going to be having words.
I thought,
you know what?
Hang on, didn't you shut the door after you let it out?
Somebody opened the door to let it back in.
The pure gold. AI interrupting a conversation about AI. Brilliant.
Hi there and welcome back to Building Your Leader Brand. My name's Bob Gentle and every week I speak with incredible people who share their secrets to building, marketing and monetizing your expertise and the mindset you need for your business to grow and thrive. While you still have your device on your hand, take a moment to subscribe. That way you won't miss a single thing and my numbers will look better. So this week we're taking a bit of a departure from the normal, straightforward interview shows.
Because you've not got amazing people, is that?
I know. Honestly, I have such a big backlog right now. I've never been in better shape with the podcast. But
so we've
been speaking about this for a long time.
This isn't a show that I like where you say, "Oh, I've been looking forward to this conversation for so long." Instead, no, you've just got me and Alex that we talk to each other very regularly, and frankly, this could just be any other Friday afternoon.
Yes, but I'm recording it instead. So I'm joined today, if you haven't noticed, by two of my business friends. Probably best business friends. I don't speak to that many business friends, but you're the two I speak to most often alongside a few other people. But no, I'm not going to go there. But we're going to have some fun today because we agreed we were going to come along and we were going to do a little show and tell on how each of us is using AI in our business. This is something that whenever it's been touched on in an interview, it gets great feedback because this is very topical. Everybody kind of wants to know how to use the AI tools. It's a lot like, wow, there's a new spanner in a shop. Nobody has any idea how to use it or what they can even use it for. I know that we're all using it in very different ways. And hopefully, as we riff on this, the listener will be triggered, motivated, inspired, whatever, to perhaps start integrating some of these things into their own workflow. But I'm getting ahead of myself because nobody knows who you are. So Alex and Pete, Alex, you go first. Who are you and what do you do?
So my name's Alex Curtis and I work in financial services, mortgage brokers mainly, some lenders as well. Basically, we help them generate leads. So, but also we don't, not on a sort of price per lead model. So we're like a marketing agency in that industry, but the value we bring is on sort of the money they make on the other side. So we're just tracking the most efficient way for them to generate more business through marketing.
Pete, welcome. Who are you and what do you do?
Thank you. So I'm Pete Everitt. I run a couple of businesses. I have a UK-based digital marketing agency called So, and I also run a white label SEO service called SEO Hive.
So I know you're both using AI in different ways, and I thought perhaps what we could do is just go around the table a few times, so to speak, and maybe just share one thing that we're doing right now. And we could probably go around a few times. Alex, you're to my right, so I'm going to let you go first. What could people be doing that you're doing? What's good, Alex?
Do you know what? As you asked before, I gave a few suggestions, and then as you were speaking, I thought actually the best one that anyone can use is, when you get an email and you're annoyed, you are insert your favorite word. Do you know what? I saw nothing to do with anything. I saw on Instagram, it's like the English language, you can insert any noun after you absolute, and it's an insult, you absolute toaster. So when you get those sort of emails and you're thinking you're an absolute noun, using ChatGPT to reply so that you can unload your anger and tell it to just be direct, don't be emotional, and just state the facts. It's great at writing those sort of emails. I would definitely use it to rephrase an email, especially when you're annoyed and emotional, which I'm an emotional man.
Well, I know you don't suffer fools, that's for sure. I've been on the wrong end of that a couple of times.
Have you?
I
This is
noticed
turning into
actually
a very
that
different show. I think
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit here and let you two have therapy.
I noticed that Google Apps, Google Business
Google
Suite,
Workspace.
whatever you call it these days. Google Workspace. It's actually built Gemini in now and is only in the last couple of weeks started offering to rephrase my emails for me. So it's very similar. There's a few ways you can do it, but I think that's a really good use case of if you're somebody that doesn't necessarily feel articulate, just get your ideas down and ask AI to tidy them up for you. Or give yourself permission to just rant and ask AI to soften it for you. What about you, Pete?
Well, the most recent thing I've personally been using it for, aside from work stuff, which I'm sure we'll get onto in a minute, is actually helping me with some of my LinkedIn outreach, so LinkedIn posting and that kind of thing. I've been through a little bit of a kind of blank spell, let's say, on some of the social media posting, largely simply because I've been too busy. But actually what I found with that is that now I got to the point of thinking, well, actually I should really post a bit more. I do want to post a bit more, but I just don't want to really contribute simply to noise. So I've been using it for elements of inspiration. I'm a bit like Alex. We're going to talk maybe a bit later about whether you should be using AI to generate content online. I haven't actually been using it to write the words that I post, but actually distilling some information down, getting some post ideas together, maybe some talking points, you finding hashtags and stuff that may resonate well with an audience. All that kind of stuff AI has been good for. Alex has already mentioned ChatGPT, and I do still use ChatGPT. I have an account, but I recently have been more using Claude than Claude AI rather than ChatGPT, and actually been finding that the results are a little bit more real world. There's a bit of a price that you pay, a trade-off with Claude, which is like ChatGPT used to be, where it had a database that was based on a date and a time. Claude, I think it's September 2023 off the top of my head. I might be wrong with that, but it uses a database that only goes that far. So asking it for, what was in the news yesterday, what's Donald Trump going to do as president, it isn't going to help. But actually for processing information, gathering ideas, cleaning things up, I find its output to be a lot more real world than ChatGPT can be. A bit clinical or can sort of miss the mark a little bit. So that's why I like using Claude at the minute.
So I'm very similar, and I'm a little torn now because I discovered recently, because I've been using ChatGPT for a long time, there's this myth that it used to be a truth. I think a lot of people still believe it's true, that every individual chat in ChatGPT is separate and that they don't reference each other. And it became obvious to me that that was no longer the case when I just asked ChatGPT to write me a personal manifesto, just a one-liner, write me a personal manifesto to motivate me. And it knew me really, really well. It knew who I was. It knew who I was for. It knew why I did what I did. It had clearly been paying attention. And understanding that meant that I could use ChatGPT in some... It knows my audience. It knows what I do so well in a way that I couldn't really train Claude to do. So I find myself now using Claude almost to polish content.
Yep.
Because the Claude projects are fantastic.
Yep.
In Claude, I have a couple of projects, but one I do use for writing. And I'm really actually thinking, should I be telling anybody this? But I've trained it with a few project prompts. So it has my writing style. It has how I like to have my posts structured, the language not to use, a briefing around who my audience is. And I can really give it an outline. So if I want to write a post about this, I want it to cover this point, this point, this point, go. And it nails it almost every time. So it's really, really good. But the content strategy tends to be driven by ChatGPT. So it's, I couldn't be as effective as I am now without it. I will share one. So I have a big problem, and that is I have an overabundance of ideas. And the problem with ideas and having ideas, and lots of people have ideas, is if you don't catch them, they're pretty valueless. They just disappear into the ether. It's almost impossible to retain a good idea for more than 15 seconds unless you actually do something with it. So I use a mobile app. It was an AppSumo deal for anyone that's listening, but it's not expensive. I don't think it's available anymore. It's an app called Letterly. And it sits on the home screen of my phone. And if I have an idea, I tap the Letterly button. It opens up a little recording window. I just dictate the idea and it transcribes it for me. But then once it's transcribed it, I can just walk away, or I can tap a button to ask it to do things with that idea. So I generally use it as a repository for ideas, but I don't have to listen to the recordings. I know I could use a voice note app for this, but I'm not listening back through voice notes. I just want to see a list of my ideas. So that's very, very useful. Alex, what else have you got for us?
Yeah, do you know what? I thought, why don't I just open up ChatGPT and look at what I've been asking it? And so one, you mentioned, I think we were off air, like a book to read. There was one called Writing for Busy Readers. I may have talked about it with you guys recently. And it was the only sort of book that I've seen where it was actually, there's loads of books on how to write better and all that sort of jazz. But one that had loads of data in it on when they've experimented things and stuff like that. And there's one concept called word Jenga, where you basically, how many words can you pull out of the sentence before the sentence falls over? Much like Jenga, which is really good. So getting really direct, like, so you waffle. Like, everybody waffles, like, way too much, because you always think, I've got to cram this in, I've got to cram this in. Some of the science behind, like, when you're reading and how you remember. So one of the things with word Jenga as well was getting it as short as possible, but only one idea per sentence. Because, like, if you, next time you catch yourself reading through a paragraph, you pause at the full stop and then your brain sort of collects it. And if there's too many ideas in that one sentence, then you won't collect it all. So it's a very, very different way of writing. And then it's very, because it's so difficult to do yourself, like programming a chat and explaining, like, do you understand word Jenga, how it works, and then throw in those sentences in. I think especially for things like landing pages and like email marketing, where you are writing for busy people who are not going to read your whole thing, that's been great for really direct sort of messaging as much as possible. So yeah, teaching your AI to know how to do word Jenga is very good.
You know, I really like that. You can hire a copywriter, and full respect to all the copywriters out there, but we can, to an extent, train our AI to be a good copywriter. However, the issue that I've often had with copywriters is they have to justify their existence through the number of words a lot of the time. And actually, less is more, especially for things like landing pages. And I think this is where
it takes more time to write less. Definitely takes way more time, because you're almost like every sentence, like going through it and almost thinking, like, how hard is that working? It's worth it. It's definitely, I've definitely seen people understanding ideas and things more from doing that. But I suppose the problem with AI is like saying, oh, if you just say, oh, write me an amazing bit of copy on this thing, it may not automatically do word Jenga or write for busy readers, and it just writes something that it thinks is good. You've got to sort of train it, I think.
I think this also is worth spending a moment on, is the whole question of AI replacing people. I remember when things like Wix and Weebly came along, and everyone was in the web design industry was, oh, the sky is falling down. People can build their own websites. What actually happened was people who were really skilled thrived. People who didn't have skills didn't thrive. And I think people like editors, copywriters, web designers, creators of lots of different stripes, there will be those who learn to use these AI tools and they will fly. They'll be more efficient, they'll be more cost effective. There'll be those who resist it, and they'll be more expensive, and they will struggle to maintain their business. There will be those people who will just, using the copywriter example, they'll just get ChatGPT to write the content. But then there'll be those businesses that we actually want to work with, where they want somebody to just take care of it for them. They know they could use these tools, but they want somebody who knows how to use and get the best out of those tools to do it for them. And I think that's what people should really be paying attention to. This isn't replacing people. This is empowering good people. And yes, bad people will probably fall by the wayside. That's my rant over.
It's a good one.
Pete, do you have another thing for us?
Well, so I'm just kind of going to build on what you've just said there on that rant, Bob, to be honest, because so from our side of things, as I say, I run a digital agency and I specialize in SEO. So we deal with a lot of data. And I think that's a lot of people limit SEO to, oh, well, it's just the words on the page that help you rank in Google. And actually, there's a lot more to it than that. And discerning what to write and how to write it and how things all link together, we call it topical authority. How that fits together for each client requires a lot of numbers behind it, essentially. A bit like when Alex is talking about running ads for his clients, there's a lot of numbers that go on behind that as well. And where we use AI, so people come to us as a company, as an agency, they don't expect the result to be written by ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or insert name of favorite writing AI tool. However, we can become a lot more efficient in what we do. And ultimately, that helps us to demonstrate a faster return to our clients by using the power of these tools to process the data, which helps us get to the point of creating whatever it is we're creating for them a lot quicker. And that's ultimately one of the reasons why I started playing around with Claude and why I prefer it, I suppose, at the moment. I'm not sort of like, I'm not like Claude till I die. Don't worry. That's not quite where I am. But Claude has a couple of advantages that work well for us. So the first is, you've already mentioned, you can set up projects. So essentially, like having a ChatGPT account where you can train it who you are, we can set up Claude projects and almost train it to each individual's client's needs and their goals, their objectives, also the reality check of where they are right now. A lot of SEO is about understanding where you are now and where you want to go and creating the steps of the process to get you from A to B. So we can do that per client, which is really handy. But also, Claude seems to be more reliable at handling documents that we throw in. So we won't go and ask Claude or ChatGPT or anything else for, we have a client that's trying to sell dining tables. What are the top keywords for dining tables in London? We will never do that. But what we can do is use our own keyword research process to gather up the data that we think is key, feed that into the AI, and then use the AI to generate the topical maps for that, where the linking would be, even feed in the client's existing site maps and their current rankings, so that AI is then finding the gaps for us, so we know where things already exist that they might need to be improved, but they already exist, and where the holes are, where we're literally starting from scratch. And whereas before, that used to be, our onboarding process for a client would probably be something like a week or 10 days after kickoff meeting, we can now knock it out in 48 hours. And hence, we can deliver a return to our clients a lot quicker.
I think that's an important aspect, is the speed to return on investment for our clients. If a client is paying us X, they want the best. One moment. We have speaking of AI, we have an AI-powered robot vacuum cleaner that lives in the office. It's just kicking off just now. So I'm going to have to pause for a moment.
Oh, you shouldn't. It should be included. It should be.
It can't open the door by itself.
Well,
then it's going
that's
back in
poor.
to charge.
Then that's bad design.
How exactly does your vacuum cleaner use AI?
So say that again.
How exactly does your vacuum cleaner use AI? Is it like gathering information about your office and sending it to China?
So it LiDAR scans the whole building and it builds a little map. And so this morning, for example, I was sitting in my office chair, which wasn't where it would normally be. And it tried to clean around me. And I moved the chair, and it knew I'd moved the chair, and it now hovered under the desk. It's great. So it's self-learning in that way. It's very clever. Yes, return on investment. If we're not using these tools on behalf of our clients to get the job done as efficiently as it possibly can be done, we're not doing them a service. I think that's really important. So I have a lot of meetings, and I know you've both encountered Fathom for recording meetings and things like that, but I have a couple of automations set up around Fathom. So for the listener, Fathom is a tool which records, transcribes, and then provides an AI summary of your meetings. And then there's also an AI chat function where I can ask AI questions about the meeting. So did I promise to do anything? And it's incredibly useful. I have a terrible memory. I usually have 1 hour meetings with my clients, which we're talking about a lot of different things, and I have terrible recall. So having this as a resource to be able to go back to has changed my ability to provide, it's just elevated service levels dramatically. But it's quite difficult to manage. You've got lots of different meetings, and searching these is quite hard work. So I have a Zapier automation, Zapier, depending on who you are. So every time I have a meeting, Zapier gets an alert, and it will take a link, push into a Notion database. Bob had a meeting with this person. Here's the link. So I can go to Notion and just filter through a database and just see the meetings for one client or another client. And for me, that's a huge time saver. It saves me so much messing around, and I can quite rapidly get into what I need to do and stay on top of what's going on with the clients. Try to do that in Fathom is a real, what we would call in Glasgow, a guddle.
For any listeners outside of Glasgow, that means pain in the backside.
Yes, it's a pain in the backside. I'm going to share another one. So, as you know, and this is, I asked permission before I shared this one because it's wicked clever and it's not mine. I was involved in the conversation where it was developed. But as you know, Finn, who's editing this podcast, is his own business owner. He needs customers, like I need customers and you need customers. But he likes connecting with people who have been on podcasts, because people who have been on podcasts are often minded that they may like a podcast at some time. So it's a very productive way for him to be building his network. So what he set up was, again, a Zapier automation. And we identified, okay, these are the podcasts. He identified, rather. These are the podcasts where my ideal client is likely to show up as a guest. And he identified maybe 20 or 30 podcasts. Zapier then is watching the RSS feeds of each of these podcasts. And every time they put out an episode, Zapier processes the guest, queries it through ChatGPT, saying, who is the guest? Pushes that into Notion with the guest's name, the podcast title, and a link to the search results in LinkedIn for who that guest is, so Finn can then send a connection request. Now, in isolation, that might seem quite vague, but the net effect of it is nothing short of spectacular, because he's a fairly new business owner, doesn't have a big LinkedIn connection base. But what it has meant is that he's built a very big network of people who are podcast curious. And that has subsequently led to quite a lot of self-generated business on LinkedIn, just quite organically, because he's only building a network on LinkedIn which is relevant. And for me, that's a fascinating use of AI to process, where it's not just one tool, but you're stitching the different tools together to achieve a result. You're using it like a toolkit. And hopefully that can trigger a few ideas for some people, but there's lots of different ways to use these tools. It's not just about this one tool does this one thing, but it's how you use the tools in concert. Does that make sense? Have I articulated what he's actually doing there?
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's like in my head, things like that, I wasn't thinking of bringing it to the table because it's not like an AI tool as such. Well, so I suppose ChatGPT is doing the lookup. I suppose, yeah, it is involved. So yeah, you can literally, like you say, do anything you want. Zapier. Has anyone decided how we pronounce Zapier or Zapier?
I've always called them Zapier.
Well, they are Zaps, I suppose. So I guess it kind of makes
Zaps,
sense. Yeah, it does kind of make sense, doesn't it?
Mm.
Unless you have Zapes, but then surely that would have an E on it, like vapes.
True. We digress. But yeah, creating your own workflows is, I think some people shy away from it, but it's perfectly plausible. Someone asked, so good. I was speaking to a client yesterday, or certainly this week, where it's like he doesn't want AI to write his replies to Google reviews, but he would like them to create a draft. So he's Zapier. You can get the reviews. Zapier, sorry. You can get the reviews from. You can connect your Google My Business profile. When a review comes in, you can send that to ChatGPT, and you can ask it to draft a response, and then email that to yourself to then copy and paste if you're happy with it and tweak it. Nice little workflows like that. Like you say, little time saving things. There's all sorts of things you can do. I suppose it's like thinking about what manual processes am I doing regularly that I could shortcut, rather than thinking, start with the things already. A lot of the time we do get the manual process sorted, and then how can we then replicate that once the manual process is we've nailed it, sort of thing.
I think so. One of the things that I was going to share is CapCut, which you wouldn't instinctively think of as an AI tool, but CapCut, I think a lot of people think of it as the quick, cheap video editor on your phone. I opened CapCut this morning because I'm setting up a new Mac. Everybody, new Mac. I'm so pleased. And it's a bit more powerful than the old one, so everything goes a bit more quick. And I do a bit of video content. So we're recording this just now. I'm recording the video, but I typically don't use the video. And I know I should. But to be able to produce these little shorts is a bit of a pain. I know there's lots of different ways that I could do it using things like Opus Clip. Nice AI tool. Wonderful. But CapCut, it does auto captioning for videos. It'll do auto editing to a degree. But this morning it rocked up and said, would you like me to create shorts from this video? And I thought, I tested it out. It did a phenomenal job. Give it one 45-minute video. It chopped it up into about 20 different short videos, processed them through AI so they were logical segments, automatically captioned, and it integrated with my Google Drive. So I don't even need to upload anything. I love that because for me, and probably for the two of you, we don't necessarily meet our customers or even our prospects in person very often. We're not doing an awful lot of in-person networking. So for people to get to know us, we need content. We need content marketing. And the less friction there is, the better. And I think this is one area where everybody, especially the people listening to this podcast, really need to look at, well, what am I creating? How am I leveraging AI to make that as effective and as efficient as possible, both at the creative stage, the production stage, and the post-production stage? It's every stage. I think there's opportunities to achieve more, and achieve more that previously you might think you just had to pay for. You had to pay somebody to do these things.
Out of the 20 clips, did you watch them all? And was there a percentage of clips that you were like, nah, I wouldn't have chose that? Or just in my head? And I haven't used Opus AI for, I can't tell you when, but a long time. And it was like, it created all these clips, great, but then I watched them all through and I was like, no. And I got to a point, and sometimes it's like, there's none, I'm not going to use any of those. So I stopped using it.
I would say off the top of my head, no. The clips that it picked were they weren't the beginning that I would have chosen and the end that I would have chosen. But I know I can tweak it quite easily. I think that sometimes, so I had a client and he was using Opus Clip, and I think Opus Clip and CapCut, it's very similar the way they approach it. Sometimes AI just gets the beginning and the end. They're a bit weird. But he was he had automations set up to the extent where he produced one YouTube video that automatically generated and posted about 50 shorts for each one.
Wow.
They were all a bit rubbish, if I'm honest. But on aggregate, they had a profound impact on his YouTube channel growth. So they were working. They just weren't what I would have chosen. And I think sometimes we can be guilty of perhaps being over perfectionist. Sometimes done is better than perfect. Sometimes good is probably good enough. And I think that's really where the judgment call has to come in, because the AI might not get it quite the aesthetic we'd choose, but it gets it done. And there's probably a middle ground somewhere where we bring our discernment to bear and say, yes, that's good enough. That's not.
I was just looking at Descript. So quite like Descript for doing little podcasts and stuff. And sometimes I'll get voice notes off people off WhatsApp and stuff like that. And I was like, it's going to take me longer to explain to someone like Finn where to put and break all these clips up and do it. So I find Descript really. And then as I Googled CapCut AI, Descript were advertising the same thing. And then I opened it up and then I was like, I'm using Descript with the camera off. Yeah, I could do exactly what I could literally not add any work to what I've been doing with my sort of solo podcast episodes, other than just make sure I look presentable when I'm recording, and then sort of smash that out. And especially I think with like YouTube shorts, if they're sort of rubbish, or things like TikTok, if it's rubbish, it doesn't get seen by many people. So I suppose you're not really that worse off, are you?
Yeah. So Pete, have you got any secrets that you're gatekeeping or anything like that you would like to share? Today's the day.
Oh, well, I don't know, Bob. I mean, that's a bit personal for a podcast, isn't it? In all honesty, I've been sort of sitting here kind of in just taking it all in. I've been listener number one to this episode. Like I said at the beginning, I've kind of had a bit of a hiatus from the socials. And really for me, 2025 for me is a lot about working smarter, not harder. And I'm being quite vocal about that. I've been quite open, particularly to people like yourselves and now your listenership, Bob, and really wanting to make sure that not only do I not quite work as many hours as I have done the last few years, but also that the business is run more smoothly. So investing some of that effort and time saved. So actually, by listening to you guys talking about this, I used to do kind of Instagram reels and stuff. In fact, Alex and I think we all used to kind of do daily Instagram reels, didn't we, at one point, from memory? And they were actually pretty good for my business, but I did find that the quality of leads that we got through Instagram were quite low. There's a lot of tire kickers that came through. And it was really in the move to move that from there over to LinkedIn, which is where kind of my workflow fell down. And hence I'm wanting to sort of pick that up and get back into that. Now, whether I decide to use video for that, I don't know. I've just opened the Descript page again. It's been ages since I had a Descript account, but I know that a lot of people that I know and respect use it quite a lot. So maybe I need to look at that a bit more. But I can't really give you anything sort of kind of concrete. We're interrupted, dear listener, by Bob's AI vacuum cleaner for a second time.
I'm going to be having words.
I thought, you know what? Hang on, didn't you shut the door after you let it out?
Somebody opened the door to let it back in.
I'm going to challenge you, Bob. I'm going to challenge you to release a cut or an edit of this episode where we're doing an episode about AI, how great it is, and your AI vacuum cleaner interrupts us. I challenge you to get another clip that will perform as well on socials as that edit. That is complete nonsense, but is just brilliant.
Yeah, I think I'll probably leave it in. I might sort of cut out some of the gap in the middle, but
that's the gold.
The pure gold.
What a day!
AI interrupting a conversation about AI. Brilliant.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think if there's anything that I've missed.
I've got two other things that I've written down. Both of you guys know my obsession with Airtable. And what I have found is, like, sometimes I will, when I'm learning a new thing like that, there's some things where I have to go to a freelancer or like an expert, like, because I'm just stuck. And actually, if I look at my ChatGPT history, it's like, can you give me a formula for this? I need an Airtable formula for this. I need an Airtable formula for this. I need, like, literally loads of I need an Airtable script for that. I don't want to put freelancers out of jobs, but if I will hire an Airtable person, I've got a project on. But if I'm just stuck on like a thing and there's one little task that I need doing, I've found it great for then actually creating the script and then testing it, because something gets it wrong. ChatGPT, I'd say 7 times out of 10 gets it wrong, but then you give it the error and I sort of work it out. So that has helped me, like, debugging things, definitely. And then the other thing I was going to say, Perplexity, I've only discovered this week, but I found it better than ChatGPT in terms of, like, I gave it some data, like dates and times and outcomes of leads, and wanted it to analyze when's a sweet spot. You know, when should I be, like, manually making changes to my advertising schedule? And ChatGPT just didn't, like, analyze. It was dreadful. Perplexity was much better, but also when I asked it questions, because I was doing the episode I'm doing is when is the best time to advertise, and I was like, well, I'll ask AI what it says just in general, and what it does do is it gives me where it's referenced the stats from. So if I want to, you know, like if I was writing a book and I need to reference where I've got that information from, it gives you that as well. To my knowledge, I don't think ChatGPT tells you where it's got anything from.
I've seen it do it occasionally, but I think it can be a little bit sporadic about how it decides to tell you when it tells you. Pete, any final words from you?
All I was going to say is, you can probably tell from this conversation that my kind of use of AI has been very much kind of client type focused. The one thing I do use it for, which we haven't mentioned. So I do host a podcast, which was called the WPSEO Show, but is now called Hive Minds. There's a story behind that, which I won't bore you with right now. But for your listeners, Bob, you know, there's a hidden power of the content that you create, which is to help with the SEO of your personal brand or your business or whatever. And if your chosen form of communication is verbal or video, then actually using AI to the transcripts that you get are awful, and from actually putting those on a website, you know, okay, yes, you can physically get the words there, but they don't really mean a lot. Using that method that I was talking about before, about using AI, is absolutely fine as long as you're feeding it in at the top. So if you're putting you in at the top, i.e. your video, your transcript, your podcast, whatever it is, and then asking AI to review that for the main talking points, that helps with your show notes, to summarize XYZ section into the draft of a blog post structure. There's another one. So you can very easily use AI to help you with the repurposing of content, which will start to unlock some of the SEO power that's kind of trapped into the video or audio content that you are producing anyway. And likewise, you know, you can either set workflows for that, or if you've got VAs or whatever, you can very easily script those out into SOPs and ultimately get the biggest bang for the buck out of the effort that you're putting in anyway.
I think that is really important for people to remember. And I think it sits alongside what I was really going to close with, which is I see a lot of people using AI to avoid building their personal brand, to avoid personal visibility. I see a certain individual talking about tools that will allow you to produce hundreds of faceless video content that will allow you to sort of blow up a YouTube channel. Who's that helping at the end of the day? Content for content's sake is kind of pointless. Allowing yourself to use AI in order that you can amplify your creativity, amplify whatever it is you're bringing to the market so you can use it to reach more people. That's an effective use of AI from a marketing perspective. using AI to avoid being personally visible is a complete waste of time. From an operational perspective, there's all kinds of opportunities to exploit AI. We've covered a lot of those too. But what I would encourage people to think about is all of these AI tools are tools. What do you want to achieve? And then learn to use these tools and you will be more effective. Whether you're a creator, whether you run a business, doesn't really, whether you run a very specific service, there'll be a way to move faster, more effectively, and provide better return on investment for your clients by moving with it rather than away from it. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Bang on.
If people want to connect with you, Alex, first, where can they do that? Where does Alex Curtis hang out?
Don't. I'm boring. And
It's true.
You'll get, that is true. And especially on, I wouldn't follow my threads because that is where it's my note taker of dad jokes. That's all that is on there. I'm on LinkedIn, Alex Curtis. Problem is, right, no offense, my LinkedIn is like my sacred industry space. So like, I don't think I follow either you two, or if I do, you're muted. So a little tip is like I've got one space where it's just for potential clients and current clients, where it's just that sort of news. So probably Instagram and Curtis.
You not following me on LinkedIn answers so many questions.
Yeah, no, my LinkedIn is so when we have a little group chat and someone says, "Oh, can you like this on LinkedIn?" I'm like, no, I'll do it on Instagram. I'll do anything you want on Instagram. But
Really?
on LinkedIn, it's my little sacred space where I want to keep my sort of algorithm clear of non-industry.
You and your money nerds.
I love
Pete,
how...
what about-
Well, just before, I think we need to take a moment of appreciation that you asked Alex how people could connect with him on social media. He then talked about 2 social profiles not to follow, and then literally his last couple of words were Instagram.
That's what
that's
done,
appreciative of people's time.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Edit, Finn, if you could edit that so it sounds less, whatever the word is for rude.
Yeah,
then that'd be awesome.
That's what
you didn't even say what your Instagram profile is.
Yeah, because I've forgotten. Basically, I'm of no interest to you unless you are a mortgage broker, and then you look for the lead engine.
All right,
there you go.
I'll send Bob my Instagram for the show notes. It's Insta Curtis, and there's a full stop in there somewhere.
Yeah, because ChatGPT ain't going to be able to find it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So if people want to connect with me, I am on LinkedIn, and you can find me at just Pete Everitt on LinkedIn. Yeah, there's not that many of us.
ChatGPT does know who I am. Just search myself.
Well, nobody else cares.
They shouldn't. They shouldn't. That's the thing.
So I'm going to wrap things up there. This has been a lot of fun, and I think we must do this again. And I think next time we can maybe have a conversation specifically about lead generation. I think that's a really useful conversation.
Then
we'll maybe save that up for the springtime. But for now, thank you both very much.
Anytime, Bob.
So for you at home, if you did enjoy this, and I really hope you did, and if you didn't, I'm very sorry, you will love the Personal Brand Business Roadmap. It's everything you need to start, scale, or fix your expert business. Just visit amplifyme.agency/roadmap. And if you did enjoy the show, thank you. You're the best. I would love a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. That's it from me. Thank you at home for listening. Alex and Pete, thank you. You've been a lot of fun.
You're welcome.